Yes, about a league from here. On the route to Valognes, is it? Yes, on the route to Valognes. Well, I have every reason to believe that this inn was the headquarters of Lupin's friends. It was from there that they entered into communication with my father. What an idea! Your father spoke to nobody. He saw nobody. He saw nobody, but they made use of an intermediary. What proof have you? This photograph. But it's your photograph. It's my photograph, but it was not sent by me. I was not even aware of its existence. It was taken without my knowledge in the ruins of Ambrumésy, doubtless by the examining magistrate's clerk, who, as you know, was an accomplice of Arsene Lupin's. And then? Then this photograph became the passport, the talisman by means of which they obtained my father's confidence. But who? Who was able to get into my house? I don't know, but my father fell into the trap. They told him, and he believed that I was in the neighbourhood, that I was asking to see him, and that I was giving him an appointment at the Golden Lion. But all this is nonsense. How can you assert? Very simply. They imitated my writing on the back of the photograph and specified the meeting place. Valognes Road, 3 kilometres 400, Lion Inn. My father came and they seized him, that's all. Very well, muttered Froberval, dumbfounded. Very well. I admit it. Things happened as you say, but that does not explain how he was able to leave during the night. He left in broad daylight, though he waited until dark to go to the meeting place. But, confound it, he didn't leave his room the whole of the day before yesterday. There is one way of making sure. Run down to the dockyard, Froberval, and look for one of the men who were on guard in the afternoon, 2 days ago. Only be quick if you wish to find me here. Are you going? Yes, I shall take the next train back. What? Why, you don't know. Your inquiry. My inquiry is finished. I know pretty well all that I wanted to know. I shall have left Cherbourg in an hour. Froberval rose to go. He looked at Beautrelet with an air of absolute bewilderment, hesitated a moment, and then took his cap. Are you coming, Charlotte? No, said Beautrelet. I shall want a few more particulars. Leave her with me. Besides, I want to talk to her. I knew her when she was quite small. Froberval went away. Beautrelet and the little girl remained alone in the tavern smoking-room. A few minutes passed. A waiter entered, cleared away some cups, and left the room again. The eyes of the young man and the child met, and Beautrelet placed his hand very gently on the little girl's hand. She looked at him for 2 or 3 seconds, distractedly, as though about to choke. Then suddenly, hiding her head between her folded arms, she burst into sobs. He let her cry, and after a while said, "It was you, wasn't it, who did all the mischief, who acted as go-between? It was you who took him the photograph. You admit it, don't you? And when you said that my father was in his room 2 days ago, you knew that it was not true, did you not, because you yourself had helped him to leave it?" She made no reply. He asked, "Why did you do it? They offered you money, I suppose, to buy ribbons with a frock?" He uncrossed Charlotte's arms and lifted up her head. He saw a poor little face all streaked with tears, the attractive, disquieting, mobile face of one of those little girls who seemed marked out for temptation and weakness. "Come," said Beautrelet, "it's over. We'll say no more about it. I will not even ask you how it happened. Only you must tell me everything that can be of use to me. Did you catch anything, any remark made by those men? How did they carry him off?" She replied at once, "By motor car. I heard them talking about it." "And what road did they take?" "Ah, I don't know that." "Didn't they say anything before you—something that might help us?" "No. Wait, though. There was one who said, 'We shall have no time to lose. The governor is to telephone to us at 8 o'clock in the morning.'" "Where to?" "I can't say. I've forgotten." Try and remember. It was the name of a town, wasn't it?" "Yes, a name like Château—" "Châteaubriand? Château-Thierry?" "No.
Châteauroux?
Yes, that was it. Châteauroux." Beautrelet did not wait for her to complete the sentence. Already he was on his feet, and without giving a thought to Froberval, without even troubling about the child, who stood gazing at him in stupefaction, he opened the door and ran to the station. "Châteauroux, madame, a ticket for Châteauroux." "Over Mans and Tours?" asked the booking clerk. "Of course, the shortest way. Shall I be there for lunch?" "Oh, no." "For dinner, bedtime?" "Oh, no, for that you would have to go over Paris. The Paris express leaves at 9 o'clock. You're too late." It was not too late. Beautrelet was just able to catch the train. "Well," said Beautrelet, rubbing his hands, "I have spent only 2 hours or so at Cherbourg, but they were well employed." He did not for a moment think of accusing Charlotte of lying. Weak, unstable, capable of the worst treacheries, those petty natures also obey impulses of sincerity, and Beautrelet had read in her affrighted eyes her shame for the harm which she had done, and her delight at repairing it in part. He had no doubt, therefore, that Châteauroux was the other town to which Lupin had referred, and where his confederates were to telephone to him. On his arrival in Paris, Beautrelet took every necessary precaution to avoid being followed. He felt that it was a serious moment. He was on the right road that was leading him to his father. One act of imprudence might ruin all. He went to the flat of one of his schoolfellows and came out, an hour later, irrecognizable, rigged out as an Englishman of 30, in a brown check suit with knickerbockers, woolen stockings and a cap, a high-coloured complexion and a red wig. He jumped on a bicycle laden with a complete painter's outfit and rode off to the Gare d'Austerlitz. He slept that night at Issoudun. The next morning, he mounted his machine at break of day. At 7 o'clock, he walked into the Châteauroux post office and asked to be put on to Paris. As he had to wait, he entered into conversation with the clerk and learnt that 2 days before, at the same hour, a man dressed for motoring had also asked for Paris. The proof was established. He waited no longer. By the afternoon, he had ascertained from undeniable evidence that a limousine car, following the Tours road, had passed through the village of Bouzancais and the town of Châteauroux and had stopped beyond the town on the verge of the forest. At 10 o'clock, a hired gig, driven by a man unknown, had stopped beside the car and then gone off south, through the valley of the Bouzanne. There was then another person seated beside the driver. As for the car, it had turned in the opposite direction and gone north, towards Issoudun. Beautrelet easily discovered the owner of the gig, who, however, had no information to supply. He had hired out his horse and trap to a man who had brought them back himself next day. Later, that same evening, Isidore found that the motor car had only passed through Issoudun, continuing its road towards Orléans, that is to say, towards Paris. From all this, it resulted in the most absolute fashion that Monsieur Beautrelet was somewhere in the neighbourhood. If not, how was it conceivable that people should travel nearly 300 miles across France in order to telephone from Châteauroux, and next to return at an acute angle by the Paris road? This immense circuit had a more definite object: to move Monsieur Beautrelet to the place assigned to him. And this place is within reach of my hand, said Isidore to himself, quivering with hope and expectation. My father is waiting for me to rescue him at 10 or 15 leagues from here. He is close by. He is breathing the same air as I. He set to work at once. Taking a War Office map, he divided it into small squares, which he visited one after the other, entering the farmhouses, making the peasants talk, calling on the schoolmasters, the mayors, the parish priests, chatting to the women. It seemed to him that he must attain his end without delay, and his dreams grew until it was no longer his father alone whom he hoped to deliver, but all those whom Lupin was holding captive. Raymond de Saint-Véran, Ganimard, Holmlock Shears, perhaps, and others, many others. And in reaching them, he would at the same time reach Lupin's stronghold, his lair, the impenetrable retreat where he was piling up the treasures of which he had robbed the wide world. But after a fortnight's useless searching, his enthusiasm ended by slackening, and he very soon lost confidence. Because success was slow in appearing from one day to the next, almost he ceased to believe in it. And though he continued to pursue his plan of investigations, he would have felt it a real surprise if his efforts had led to the smallest discovery. More days still passed by, monotonous days of discouragement. He read in the newspapers that the Comte de Gesvres and his daughter had left Ambrumésy and gone to stay near Nice. He also learnt that Harlington had been released, that gentleman's innocence having become self-obvious, in accordance with the indications supplied by Arsene Lupin. Isidore changed his headquarters, established himself for 2 days at the Chartres, for 2 days at Argenton. The result was the same. Just then he was nearly throwing up the game. Evidently, the gig in which his father had been carried off could only have furnished a stage, which had been followed by another stage, furnished by some other conveyance, and his father was far away. He was thinking of leaving when, one Monday morning, he saw on the envelope of an unstamped letter sent to him from Paris a handwriting that sent him trembling with emotion. So great was his excitement that, for some minutes, he dared not open the letter, for fear of a disappointment.